بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لك الحمد حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه ونصلي ونسلم على عبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Brothers and sisters, it's my honor and pleasure once again to share with you another episode in our series Illuminate Your Life. And today I have this great tradition on counseling good, more literally, commanding good and forbidding evil. Al Amru bil Ma'ruf wa Nahyu anil Munkar. One of the greatest principles of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ says, Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi. فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. الراوي Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, al-Masdar Sahih Muslim. Whosoever sees an evil, let him change it by force. If he cannot do so, then by his tongue. If he cannot do so, then by his heart. That is the weakest degree of faith. Narrator is Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. We have spoken about him. We have brought traditions from him before. So I'm not going to go into details about him. He was one of the great companions of the Prophet. And it is reported by Imam Muslim and others. This version is from Muslim. The Hadith, according to scholars, teaches us one of the most fundamental principles of Islam. It provides a methodology for building a virtuous society. It's the principle of commanding good and forbidding evil. It mandates us, the purport is, the intent of this principle is to make us struggle, inspire us to struggle to root out corruption and evil from society and establish a virtuous society. This responsibility is placed on the shoulders of every individual. Every individual is expected to perform this duty according to their own means and the power or resources given to them. So no one is exempt. In other words, there is no passivism in Islam, passive acceptance of the status quo. No, we ought to change the status quo. We ought to struggle to remove injustice and oppression and establish a virtuous society. Furthermore, while teaching this principle, the Prophet also gives us a broad outline for a methodology. There's a priority system is implied here. In other words, each person ought to share the responsibility according to their ability, according to the power they have. No one is powerless. The degree of authority and power varies from person to person. The rulers and those who are in authority ought to enforce it through exercise of law and force. It doesn't mean that everybody goes out and use force to root out corruption. No, that is the duty of those in power, in authority. But what others have also some power. What kind of power they have? They have the power of speech, the power of pen, power of media. Others want to do so according to their means. Through the power of the media, media is so powerful now. Everybody knows. If they say that even the war is waged first in the media, and it is the media that sells it. So look at the power of the media. And of course, everyone can use some form of media. One can speak against corruption, speak for virtue, preach justice, speak against injustice, and preach and write about it. If a person is not able even to do that, then at least the least he could do is to hate. This is the weakest degree of faith. And the Prophet tells us that if a person accuses and condones, accepts corruption, he cannot be called a believer. Iman and acquiescing or condoning corruption and evil cannot coexist. Unfortunately, this is the case with even some of our scholars who fail to fulfill this responsibility by condoning and even signing rules that are aggressive, that is oppressive. And that is the irony of the Muslim Ummah today. The Hadith explains the Quranic verse that spells out the raison d'etre, the justification for the existence of the Muslim community. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best community brought forth unto mankind, enjoining right, forbidding wrong, and believing in God. So the Muslim community has a mandate to stand forth as witnesses of truth and justice and compassion in the world. Another verse, كذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا. Thus did we make you a middle community that you may be witnesses for mankind. Witness for what? For truth and justice. And the messenger may be a witness for you. To stress the critical nature of this responsibility, the Prophet said, والذي نفسي بيده لتأمرن بالمعروف ولتنهون عن المنكر أو ليوشكن الله أن يبعث عليكم عقابا منه ثم تدعونه فلا يستجيب لكم. By the one who holds my soul in his hands, you shall continue to counsel good and forbid evil. If you don't do so, Allah might send down his punishment upon you, and then he will not answer you when you call upon him. I wonder we have reached this state of affairs now. Imam Ibn Daqiq says, commanding good and forbidding evil is the mandatory duty of every Muslim, established by the sound evidence of the book and the Sunnah and the consensus of the Muslim community. It is the same as the duty of Nasiha, which the Prophet, we have explained that Hadith, the Nasiha that the Prophet referred to as the essence of religion. Some people mistakenly cite a verse in the Quran as an excuse for not exercising this duty. That is why the pious Caliph Abu Bakr, he addressed this issue on the Mimbar in Medina, saying, "O people, there are people who misinterpret the following verse. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu alaykum anfusakum la yadurrukum man dhalla idha ihtadaytum." O you who believe, you are responsible for your own souls. He who has strayed cannot harm you if you are guided. And they are forgetting the fact that the phrase, if you are guided. I heard the Messenger of Allah say, if the people who see the evil do not strive to correct it, Allah may send down punishment that will not spare anyone. So Abu Bakr wanted to teach that steadfastness on the straight path demands that one must fulfill one's duties. Among these duties is commanding good and forbidding evil. So if we fail to do so, by shirking that responsibility, we cannot be considered as rightly guided. So the sound meaning of the verse is that once a person has discharged the duty, he is not responsible for those who persist in their sins. Lessons from the Hadith: commanding good and forbidding evil is a duty of every Muslim. Everyone should discharge it according to their means. Those in authority must use the power of law. Others should use methods of communication, speech, pen, social media. Those who cannot do so should at least hate it. However, no one should condone evil or acquiesce in it. Commanding good and forbidding evil should be done in a persuasive way using wisdom. Once we have done so, our duty, we are not accountable for those who persist in error. We leave the judgment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لست عليهم بمسيطر وما عليك إلا البلاغ. Your duty is to convey the message. You are not appointed as an overseer over them. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.